Good morning, everyone. I hope you're well. Thank you for attending Bitesize Training this morning. I hope you enjoy the session. This morning's session will be led by Errol Seaman, and he's going to talk to you about target setting, which is very timely as the progress review window is about to open. So, Errol, over to you.
Many thanks, Sarah. Good morning, all. Happy Wednesday to you all on this lovely spring, sunny day, I should say. But as Sarah said, yeah, we're going into the progress review window, and it's quite apt to look at target setting. So I've labeled this particular training target setting a step-by-step path to student achievement. Aims of today's session are really just to review smart target setting. I want to make it explicitly clear. I know you all know how to set targets. I know you're all familiar with smart target setting. This is not necessarily to teach you anything new. This is purely a reminder because in the course of our daily practice, we can all, get a little bit slack with what we're doing. And sometimes we may, forget to do certain things in a certain day. So just a reminder and just review our application and make sure that we're doing what we have to do. So please take it in that particular way. Our pleasure to you, as always, guys, to be timely, to provide something of value and provide something that you can take away and utilize into your practice um, straight away within the TLA framework. Goal setting, target setting. I'll use both those words interchangeably throughout the bite size. Can inform your planning and sequencing moving forward. Good target setting should really inform what you're doing moving forward, should give you good feedback in terms of getting a pulse of your individual students and your class as a whole. Target setting itself can become a classroom activity where you're working with your learners to make sure that they're moving forward step by step on target towards their objectives. And also, of course, assessment and learning checks can be incorporated as a strategy as well within target setting. So all elements of the TLA framework do encompass target setting. I want to start with this quote. Setting goals is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible. And to me, it's a quite profound statement put there by Tony Robbins, and understanding that if we really look at it, target setting, creating something which is not there. If you really think about the aspects of what we're doing when we're setting goals, when we're setting targets, we're taking something that doesn't exist and we're creating something in our reality that does exist. It's quite a spiritual type of activity if you really analyze it. And doing that, it means that we have to really analyze what is the process that we're doing in order to make sure that those ideas, those conceptions that are just mental within our minds, within our students' minds, are going through a particular process to make sure that they are manifested into a reality. And the smart target framework is a very simple way to help manage that particular process. This training came about. Some of you may know that we've been doing deep dives in certain areas over the last month or so, and there was some feedback that came out just in the rudimentary analysis of the data so far. And one of the key things was that there was poor learner engagement with eTracker. A lot of the students just do not know what their targets are, and a lot of students did not understand, did not know that the targets are clearly there on eTracker when they were there on eTracker, and they weren't able to communicate their idea that they understood where the targets were. And if there's a clear disconnect with their targets, even if they're there and the targets have been set and have gone through the process, there's quite clearly a disconnect. So we want to make sure that we are, linking our students' objectives, day-to-day activities with their targets. They know where they are, and most importantly as well, we want to make sure that the targets were smart. And a lot of the targets on eTracker were not smart. So we need to make sure we're not being like Forrest Gump, as we put there, a little Wednesday bit of a laugh for you, but we want to make sure that we are, setting targets in the right way. And a smart framework is a simple guide in order to do that. I want to talk about the three horizons of goal setting. And if we looked at goal setting, kind of like following a GPS in our cars navigating somewhere, and just like with a GPS, we start off with our current location and we want to get somewhere. We want to get somewhere, some location. And obviously there's a route to get to our particular location, but kind of important that there's not necessarily one route to get to any particular location. There's maybe an efficient route, most efficient route, which is what your sat nav attempts to give you in terms of time, but there's also multiple routes to get there. But let's look at it and use this particular analogy. Let's explore this. Yeah, let's look at long range goal setting, and we can. I look at long range goal setting, long range goals as the key motivator for us as individuals, for your students. Your students may not get excited. They may not see or getting my GCSE English or getting my GCSE maths, for example, as a sexy goal. It might not inspire them in that particular way, but their long range goal, completing the overall diploma, securing an apprenticeship, securing a career, whatever their chosen career is. I've given some examples: a beautician, a firefighter, an accountant. That what might be what excites them. And we need to have that key nugget in front of them, that key motivator, and find what is their key motivator, their key motivation as that long range target to dangle in front of them when they are doing the activities in between, to understand these are merely steps to get to that particular exciting goal. It may be tangible things that excite them. Maybe it's a particular car that they want to own in the future, or having a house, or having a family. But we need to understand and put these goals in front of them as a long range key motivator. Then we have medium range goals. Yeah, medium range goals, kind of like the roadmap. We see the map, we know what the path is, and these are milestones that we have to take in order to get to that end goal. There's no negotiation with this. Yeah, and there may be multiple ways to get there, as I've explained within the GPS analogy. But we know that on our courses there's particular projects that need to be completed, particular units. Maybe there's particular levels of attainment that the students need to acquire. Maybe there's specific skills they need to get competency in or mastery in. But these are milestones along the way. And of course, from a short range point of view, we have our step by step, daily, weekly things that we do that are all the minutiae to build up to that next milestone, If we use the analogy of a ladder, they're like rungs of a ladder that we're stepping to get to the top, which is our long range goal. So all of these particular types of ways of looking at the individual goals, we understand, are we sometimes setting goals which we're looking at which may be too far in the future for the student to get a real daily context, but we're treating them as they're like a real short range goal. So we want to see, what are we doing to make sure we're keeping the students consistent with knowing their short range goals, keeping the actions, reviewing these actions, and making sure that these actions are completed in a timely manner, so we can move on and gradually move towards those medium range and long range goals. Key takeaway for this particular part: we can't reach that long range goal without completing the short range actions. I love this particular image, and seeing that if we had a ladder and the rungs of the ladder are compromised, well, there's no way we're going to be able to take the step-by-step actions to reach that top of that ladder. So we need to make sure we're doing the refinement at each of those short range and medium range targets and actions in order to complete the goal. We all know about the SMART framework, but let's go through it again. We can always do with little reminders. And we know that the S within the SMART framework, we're looking at specificity. What exactly do they want to accomplish? And I put they in little dash marks, because it might be you that is setting the goal for them, right, as the educator, as the leader within the room. But it has to be combined with them having ownership of that particular goal. They need to understand why they're doing that particular action. And even if we set a particular target for them and we understand that, listen, this needs to happen, we need to have that conversation and be able to communicate with them so they understand that that particular action needs to be accomplished in order for them to keep moving towards the accomplishment of the success that they need. Yeah, so being specific, being really crystal clear with the language, with the communication, and getting that feedback from them that they do understand what is happening. Obviously, we can't know actions are completed and that we're making progress if we can't track. So we all understand that goals need to be measurable and they need to have a defined way that we know that the outcome has been achieved as we're moving forward, and that needs to be clearly communicated with our learners. We know that with SMART targets, they need to be achievable within the context of what the student and where they are at their particular time, their level of competence. Do they have the resources? Do they have the time? Do they have the support in order to do this? And making sure that we're having that conversation. So we're removing all these barriers, we're removing all these excuses that may come up if we get to an endpoint and the student hasn't done these actions. That's a way that we're creating accountability for that particular student. Relevancy. Talked about the long range goal. Remember, we talked about their key motivator. This is what gets them excited. This is what is giving them that juice to do these day-to-day actions. So if you understand, they understand, we keep reminding them of that long range goal, then we know the relevancy of all these actions that may not seem relevant within an individual context, but within the big picture, they understand what's happening. And we know they need to be time bound. Yeah, brilliant quote. A goal without a deadline is just a wish. It's just wishy-washy thoughts, that airy-fairy things, but we put a deadline on it. It gives us a context, conceptual context, a practical context to do these particular actions, carry out these activities in order to complete it, to manifest it, to create it tangibly, to tick a box, however you want to label it, but it allows the student to keep moving forward step by step towards their goals. Let's look at some examples. Within the deep dive, one of the areas that really shone was actually within careers. And the careers team do a really excellent job of making sure the students they work with are, really setting powerful goals and powerful targets for them to accomplish and move forward. So here's just some examples of one careers teacher, one careers practitioner working with a student, and looking at these were, they're not obviously they're summarized in terms of the goal for the student, progress in GCSE English and maths, and the clear objective, the clear action: complete additional revision and complete assignments on time. And this is an ongoing particular target right there. Yeah, you could refine it within the language, you could be a bit more detailed, but you see that the language is clear in terms of what the student has to accomplish. Research backup options. Now this is you giving them specific actions using job profiles, National Career Service, prospects, support their research, and then a clear area of accountability. Once you've done this, please let me know if you'd like any additional support, and then there's a clear timeline for that to be completed. Another action: continue to apply for apprenticeships using websites like UCAS, Not Going to Uni, prospects to find opportunities to apply for. Again, clear actions for the student to accomplish. And then the last one: update CV. Please send over your CV for additional feedback. And obviously these would be done within the context of having that one-to-one, having that sit down with that particular learner, and there's obviously minutiae and nuance that we're not revealing within what we see in front of us, but just a little simple guide to make sure that we're on the correct path. Yeah, so just to complete things to consider: have you clearly communicated with your learners where their targets are located? And we may think we have, but listen, I was camping last night with Gwen's public service students. We was doing a little walk around the campsite. We walked past these changing rooms and toilets that the students could use. We turned this particular corner, and this learner said, "Oh, you're gonna have to walk back with me. I won't know where this toilet is." And we literally just walked past it, and there's clear landmarks. And we said, "No, part of your development, you need to understand and concentrate and understand that we've just walked past there, and this is the path to get back here, because you're going to have to do it later on when you want to go toilet and have a shower." Yeah, my point being is that saying things once sometimes is not getting the job done with some of our learners, and we need to repeat the process to make sure they're understanding what's going on. Have they transferred their targets to a platform more accessible and practical to them? For example, get them to rewrite their targets on their phone. Phone's always with them 24/7 a day. Maybe they write their notes in their form so it's more accessible, so it's backed up not just on e-tracker, but it's also on their personal. Do you have structured review periods built into your schedule to review the targets with them? Because if we're not reviewing them at timely points, then they're just going to go away and there's just going to be data that's lost on e-tracker. We're never going to look at them again because we need to somehow hold our students' hand until we know that they're competent and they're responsible enough to make sure they're getting the targets done themselves and the actions done themselves. Yeah. And how do you encourage accountability? Yeah. As much as we want to encourage students to complete these targets, it has to come from them. Yeah, it's their career, it's their course, it's their goals, it's their dreams. Yeah, and the accountability and the motivation, the inspiration, we can help them, but they need to find it within themselves. So building that accountability structure within the practice of target setting, goal setting is key as well. Yeah, so just complete. I usually have a quote of the day, but today I've got a picture of the day, and I love this picture because it shows you what we need to communicate with our students, that just because we shoot a shot at our target to complete an action, we're not always going to be successful. And sometimes we need to do multiple actions in order to move forward, to refine, to get better. We might not always be successful. In other words, sometimes there's failure along the way, the pathway to success. And we want to make sure that they understand this, and we make sure that they understand that we're here and that all the college services are here for their support moving forward. So I'll just finish on that, guys. Thank you for your attention. Have a great day. As always, guys, if you need additional support, myself, Sarah, Sylvia, please come and see us in T222. And other than that, have a lovely day.
Cool. Thank you so much, Errol. A great refresher there. Yes, sometimes training isn't about necessarily giving you something new, but it's about to refresh our skills and jog our memories about kind of what we need to do and why we need to do it. So a lovely session. Thank you so much. A comment from Irina is saying, thank you. You're welcome. Examples are helpful to see the range of targets we could set at this stage of the academic year. They're good points. Yeah, sometimes when students are ending their course, it's a bit difficult to know, isn't it, what to set them. But yeah, some great examples there, Errol. As Errol said, go out, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the sunshine. See you later. Take care, guys. Bye.